Go. Welcome to the Fuse podcast, the podcast for those who have a passion for PR and comms. And this week we are joined by Dean Connelly from Latte, the recruitment firm, and we're speaking about the impact of AI on PR skills. And there are some fascinating insights in here, including how the recruitment process is changing because of AI, who will be most impacted by AI in future, specialist skills now in demand from PR agencies, and how he's already witnessing a slowdown in the talent pool at junior levels as well. Enjoy. Hi, Dean. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Adrian. It's good to catch up.
Good to catch up. First of all, could you tell our listeners a little bit about you and Latte?
Yes, I am the founder of Latte. We are a specialist PR and comms recruitment agency, and we've been running for 9 years, recruiting for both agency side and client side roles.
Brilliant, excellent. And you're in the privileged position of speaking to both job seekers and those who are recruiting as well. So your finger is very much in the pulse of what skills are in demand. And I know today's topic is all about how AI is going to be impacting the industry, and it really is impacting the industry right away. First of all, before we look forward, I'd like to have a look at the here and now. And how have you seen AI impact the recruitment process?
Yeah, it's really been interesting, Adrian, and I think what you just said is very true. You can read all the reports, but actually, when you're on the ground having hundreds of conversations with hiring managers or managing directors and candidates, you get a much closer feel for what's going on in the market. And I would say for the first half of this year, I wasn't seeing anything really change that much on the AI front. It all felt generic. We're all doing research, we're doing this and that. And then really in the last 2 months, I'm seeing a lot of changes and the AI conversation is creeping into the recruitment process. So as a starting point, we've had our first candidate rejected after they responded to a brief at final stage because the client said it's clear they just used AI and then they weren't able to put any critical thinking of their own on top. And when we checked with the candidate, we said, what's the go here? And they said, yeah, sorry, I did use AI. And we said, did you provide any how, what, why in your thinking and reasoning? And they're like, no, I didn't. So just in that, we are now already working on an interview brief document with talent to say, if you're going to use AI, that might be okay, depending on the client, we'll guide you. But really, if you can't back up your thinking and reasoning, you're not going to get the job offer.
That's really interesting. I mean, I remember probably about 2 years ago, we were recruiting for a grad position, and I think we probably had about 70 applicants. That's so many applicants. But I remember I was so shocked by the covering emails because pretty much every single one was exactly the same until
Yes.
it dawned on me that they were all using AI to create their cover letters.
Yeah.
Well, this idea of like protecting the critical thinking within the process, and that's really really important in our roles, obviously, because quite often we need to advise on the fly and respond to situations very very quickly. What are agencies doing in the recruitment process to try and protect against this? I've spoken to some people who work in the universities world, and they're talking about doing exams in internet un-internet enabled rooms,
Yeah.
doors locked, no Wi-Fi, get on like this. Have you been hearing about any of this in interview processes at all?
We haven't seen a lot of it yet, but the conversation and questions around it is increasing. So
Mm,
one of the shifts, we've just had our first client, a B2B tech agency that's hiring at account exec level.
yeah,
They want us to screen talent on their use of AI, how they're using it, and their skill set in it. It's forming part of their interview questions, and they are giving candidates a pretty in-depth task with a lot of data that needs to be uploaded into AI, and they're encouraging them to use AI as a platform.
brilliant.
So that's interesting. And then on the flip side, we've still got clients where it's a little bit like what you said. You're locked into a room, You're given a laptop but no internet, and we need you to write a press release and X, Y, and Z. So I think there's an easy solution, which is make sure there's no internet connection on the laptop, but it's pretty difficult to achieve if they're doing a task from home.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I can see that. And from your conversations, you're starting to pick up a really good indication of what agencies are looking for and what PR professionals are looking for in terms of AI as a skill set.
Yeah,
Um, Tell us a little bit about what you're hearing here.
yeah. So it's really, for me, only started in the past 2 months, as I said, where it's starting to creep more and more into our conversation. And we had another B2B agency that we just picked a brief up from.
Mm.
And this might be covering, more ground, but they were hiring two account executives. And then their MD said, actually, because of the efficiencies with AI, we think we'll just see if we can get away with one. Now,
Wow.
that's the first time I've heard that, in a conversation. And, we have to be careful not to jump on one conversation to say that that is a trend. If I'm starting to hear it 4, 5, 6 times, then I start to get worried. It hasn't changed that much in terms of AI testing. But I think by the end of this year, that's going to become more and more common, because what happens is when you hear this conversation, oh, one client's now testing on AI, another person goes, oh, we should do the same. And it starts to become a bit of a knock on effect. Um, and the other thing that I heard for the first time as well, Adrian, is that this agency said we're now starting to think about hiring AI specialists or AI PR specialists. And I said, what does that look like? Is this someone coming from a tech background? Is it coming straight out of uni that studied AI? And they said it would probably look like a couple of things. One, maybe they're coming from an agency where they've really been trained and developed on AI, and we want that skill set brought in. So they're great at prompting, great at building manuals. They can train the team on how to prompt AI in a really effective way. And the other is they might have a technical skill set where they can start to build platforms on top of ChatGPT and tailor that for client needs and the agency needs. So I feel like I've gone broad with my answer there, but I don't think we're seeing a shift, a massive shift, but I think it's increasing in terms of questions around AI and how you're using it. And I think very quickly we're going to maybe start to have some specialist AI roles come in.
Oh, you've definitely gone broad. I mean, you've busted this wide open now.
Right.
Let's dig into it and break it down, shall we? Like, some really, really interesting things you mentioned there. Let's go for the first part, which is it feels to me. So, what you talked about with can we get away with one AE certainly aligns with conversations that I've had with other agency leaders, where we're talking about diamond shape or T-shaped agencies, which is the future. It feels to me like AI is going to be impacting junior staff more than senior staff. Does that align to what you're hearing as well?
It does, yeah. It aligns to what I'm hearing and to what I'm seeing, because for a whole year now, um, we map the market. So we're going in behind agencies and brands and mapping all of the talent at every level and every sector.
Yeah.
And one of the sectors that I keep looking at and going, why is the candidate pool at this junior level shrinking, is technology PR. We're struggling to find A's. I think we've got about 90 account executives in B2B tech PR in that folder, and I'm trying to see where else they've gone. Now, that's a multifaceted issue. One is we've seen corporate agencies acquiring tech agencies. So now MHP own Tuva, and I can't tell who's a tech candidate, who's a corporate candidate, whereas I felt it was separated before. But the other stat in that's interesting, Adrian, is we created a talent trends report this year that used LinkedIn data to look at the size of talent pools at each level in PR for Manchester and London. And the PR account coordinator, junior account executive level in London only grew by 0.2%. And for account executives, it declined by 0.1%. Yet every other level above that had almost every other level except for senior account managers had double digit growth. So to give you an example, PR account managers grew by 13% in talent pool size. Account directors grew by 13% in talent pool size. Account executives declined, as we said, by 0.1%. So that data is already telling me there's a slowdown at this junior level, and there seems to be an expansion at the more senior level. Now, one of the questions I ask when you see that data is, well, how are we expanding at that senior level? Because PR is not an industry you can hire externally from and just bring in. So is it faster promotions? What's going on? I don't have the answers, but there's a sign that junior hires are slowing down.
That is fascinating. Take us through this because it feels like a demographic question now. We talk about the aging workforce in Britain as a whole, right? And that's an issue for many developed economies. Um, does this mean so? If the junior levels are shrinking,
Mm.
does this mean there's going to be a dearth of SAEs, AMs, and SAMs in the future? How's this going to impact the future of the demographics of our workforce?
My prediction is we are going to have a scenario of what happened straight after COVID. So in COVID, no one hired entry level talent. And then each year after, there was a knock on effect at the relevant level. So 1 year after, there were no AEs and everyone was fighting for AEs. A year after that, there were no SAEs. A year after that, there were no AMs. And it kind of continued for about 4 years, and it's flattened out now. I think that's going to happen. We will have a period where agencies are slowing down on their junior hiring. I've now heard two agencies say they're not going to hire from AM level and below AM level anymore. And then I think the industry is going to have a talent challenge again on its hands, where they need to look at what do we do for the training and development. Do we look at bringing account executives and junior roles back in where they're going to take a few years to upskill,
Mm,
or do we bring in experienced talent that have got a commercial mindset from another industry but need to learn PR? I don't know how that's going to work. And I think the challenge PR agencies in particular have with that will be the fee structure and the cost model of hiring an account manager from another industry at a 40K salary, but then having to teach them everything about PR. It just doesn't seem to work.
yeah.
I think there's going to be an issue there.
Oh, it sounds like it. And going back to your earlier response about agencies asking for candidates that have different skills, AI skills. So the ability to prompt well, but also to build tools and build, bespoke GPTs. And I've spoken to quite a few different agency leaders over the last few months, and I'm always surprised by the number of people who are starting to build in-house tools using AI.
Yeah.
Is this something that how prevalent is this, and are you starting to see more and more agencies doing this and asking for this? Because surely, an AE of the past was go right, create some media lists and do some media pitching for us and help us with a few follow ups and that kind of thing. It feels like the skill set's evolving quite quickly now.
Yeah, it is. And again, I felt for the first half of this year with my conversations, and look, that could just be maybe the conversations I was having. I didn't feel there was any real difference between any agency and the AI that was being offered. It felt like everyone was
Mm,
for prompting, research, analytics. And now I'm just starting to hear more conversations. Like there was a candidate that was talking about how they've got an AI platform that can read a CEO's interview and determine when there's trust being built and when it's trust is being lost from that
wow.
interview. That's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then I'm now hearing some of the small and boutique agencies building their own AI solution and model internally on top of a chat GPT. So it seems to be happening more and more. I don't feel like I've got enough insight yet and examples of what all those different things are looking like. Um, but it's happening. And it sounds like it's moving beyond just research.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's a fascinating story there about building that tool to analyze CEO interviews. I remember speaking to someone who had they worked for a public affairs consultancy, and of course, politicians they love to speak. And so you can always find interviews with politicians and loads of data out of them. Loads of data about politicians, and they were working on creating clones of all of the different members of parliament so that you could test messaging on them and
Wow.
see how likely they were to react to different messages, which is absolutely bonkers, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like my mind goes into, I don't know, like a cloud when I start to hear this stuff of like, where are we going to be ending up?
Yeah, and you don't work just in the UK. You work in the UK and in Australia. Are you seeing differences there, like between these conversations?
I feel like I am seeing a slight difference. I am not hearing the AI conversation as much in Australia as what I am here. Um, and I don't want to speak out of turn because sometimes it often feels like Australia is a few years behind the PR industry in the UK.
Right.
But there's some amazing campaigns coming out of there. I haven't heard the AI conversation as much with managing directors over there. It's just not doesn't seem to be on the lips of everyone as much.
Mm. And you also have a good perspective because I know you don't just recruit in agencies; you also recruit in house as well. Have you seen any differences there in the conversation? Like maybe like,
Yeah, we haven't yet. We are about 90% agency side, 10% brand. It's when a brand comes knocking on our door. Um, One thing that I have been looking at for my own business is how do I future-proof Latte in this world of AI? Where are the pockets that, if the PR agency landscape does shrink into, a senior level consultancy talent only and not juniors, where are the opportunities for recruitment? And what keeps coming from ChatGPT, of course, is that the reputation protection of a brand, be that agency side or in-house, there will always be a need for that human perspective, and that probably in part the corporate teams and in-house teams and consumer protection brand teams, etc., or brand teams will remain quite stable in-house. But I haven't seen enough of the in-house side to know if there's a shift happening there. What I hear from agencies is that in-house clients want to know that their agency is upskilling in AI and are leaning on their PR agencies for advice around how to use AI.
no, interesting. There was an article actually in the Financial Times, I think, last week, which looked into this, and I think one of the quotes, and I probably haven't got this completely wrong, but one of the quotes from an in-house corporate comms director was, "Yeah, you can use AI to analyze a piece of comms, but I'm the only person who can say to a CEO, if you say that, you will sound like a tit."
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
So, I also heard, and I don't know if you've heard this as well, that in terms of training for with AI, agencies seem to be investing more in training than in-house teams. I don't know if this is something that you come across at all.
I don't know about the comparison, but I I would agree just on the fact that when you have an agency, your whole team base is PR. So there's a lot of investment in skill set. It's kind of like recruitment, right? When you are agency, you have multiple brands, multiple industries, multiple touch points. You become an expert purely because of that. And therefore you need to stay across the latest trends. And that is like the same when we're dealing with an in-house recruiter. They have a single point of view of their world, and we have a much wider view of the PR talent market and the trends because we've got so many PR sectors, levels, etc., that we're recruiting for. So it would make natural sense. It would make sense for me that agencies are investing more in training. We have looked at who is getting the training in AI in our salary guide. I'm just looking at the stats. So 40 we did our salary guide finished, I think it was in June or July,
Hmm.
and at that point 49% of the industry said that they had received training in AI, but 51% still said that they hadn't. And
Right.
then interestingly, in terms of the stat, there was more senior talent that had been trained in AI than junior. And I thought that was fascinating because all we keep hearing is that it's the junior talent that's using it for prompting and research and all of those things. And that kind of leads me on to another anecdote that I heard, Adrian, with an interview where it was a senior, it was an associate director, and they said, we had a new client come on board. I uploaded all of the market data. It was a sector I didn't know anything about. I asked for their competitors. I uploaded brand watch data, etc. Whatever tools they had, it spat out a report, and then they were able to use their PR knowledge and critical thinking to go, right, what is relevant here? What needs to be taken out? What do I need to add in, and what needs to dig deeper? Now, when they were giving the junior talent some of these tasks that you would normally give, they were using AI in the same way, but they had no context or critical thinking as to how to analyze the results. And
Yeah.
here is where the problem is, in that they said, for me to train them to look at what they need to do, that's hours of training. For me to just go and do it myself, it's maybe 10 to 15 minutes of my own input on AI. And then I can just do another like 15 to 30 minutes or, an hour on myself to provide the critical thinking. And I think this is going to be the challenge
Yeah.
of, in the speed of the day, when we don't have time and I'm a senior team member, do I do it myself on AI because it's faster? Or do I sit and spend time adding context, helping develop critical thinking skills with that junior team member? And I understand that trade off.
Yeah. Which brings me to the question for some of our listeners who may be thinking about this and thinking, "Oh gosh, this is a threat to me in a junior position." What advice would you give them to ensure that they become, an attractive candidate at a junior level, or as they develop in their careers?
The biggest piece of advice is they must understand the how, what, why of what
Yeah.
they're doing. If they're producing a report and using ChatGPT or producing insights, they must seek from their senior line manager why we're doing this, why this data is important, what needs to be seen, and consistently asking for context. Because if they're not doing that, they will just be a data in, data out type of person,
Right.
and they won't grow their consultative skill set. And I think that's even on basic tasks. Like, for example, we write candidate profiles, and we're now using um, uh, Google Gemini to record the transcript, put it into ChatGPT, and spit out the profile. But then I need to go through and go, no, they really needed to understand new business. And this ChatGPT saying this person's amazing in new business, but my assessment is that they wasn't, and I need to that they weren't. Sorry, and I need to change that. So my advice is develop critical thinking and ask questions. And I don't know if you might know this better, Adrian, but um, maybe in some ways try and not use AI as much. Try and do some of the tasks manually, because that's what we all did growing our careers, and that's what gave us our critical thinking.
Yeah. I'd say so. I'd say so. I going back to my friend who works in education, in university education, they really try to encourage the critical thinking. And I remember a story about them saying they had students who had used AI to write an essay, and they said, "No, you've used AI to write an essay." And they said, "Well, what's the problem? What's the problem?
Yeah,
Why shouldn't I have done it?" And they're like, "Well, writing the essay or doing the thinking, that's the valuable bit, not what
yeah,
you spout out on a page." And so they are really trying to encourage people to do the process and understand the process and enjoy the process, so that they are developing those skills and flexing those muscles in their brain to become more valuable in the future. Do you think agencies should have do you think agencies have a responsibility to their junior staff to do this? Should they be putting some guidelines for them and say, we're doing this, it's going to be slower, but we're doing this for your benefit?
they do. And the thing that agencies need to look out for is, if I can get away if I'm an agency and I can get away with hiring one AE instead of two, because I
Mm,
can file more admin, coverage report, basic analytics, etc., to that AE, am I allowing them enough space to then have time to develop their critical thinking? Because the issue with ChatGPT, and I found this myself, is in the busyness of the day, it's addictive to just go and sort it. You know you're doing it. And even myself, I'm like, oh God, I really should do this manually just to keep my skills sharp.
Yeah.
I've got a list of 100 things to do, so I'm just going to use ChatGPT. Uh, and I think that's where the challenge will be is the cost saving of not hiring multiple juniors, but their workload being full, that they don't have the space and time to really do things manually, to question what they're doing, etc.
Interesting. And this salary report that you've just done, how what tell us a bit more about the key findings on that, and do you think any of that has been impacted by emerging technology?
Yeah, I feel like there's a multitude of factors that are affecting salaries. So salaries have definitely plateaued. You don't want to keep referring to COVID, but it's a big reference point. And
Yeah.
agency leaders and in-house teams saw salaries jump almost every 6 months at one point. It was crazy for a period of 2 to 3 years. It's really plateaued. And what's interesting is um, even after this survey, I've now just seen two agencies drop their AE salary by £1,000.
Oh, really?
We were seeing, again, this was on the B2B tech side, that it was typically you're going to get 30K as an AE in these B2B tech agencies. Most have a range 29 to 31. And now it's dropped slightly. Now I'm sure they'll consider it, but that was an indication for me. We've seen freelancers having to drop their day rate because there's not as much freelance work going around. And I think it's a combination of a softer market,
Yeah.
um, maybe a little bit of AI coming in at the junior levels, with the increase in NI and those changes on staffing costs. Um, and so at the junior levels, the jumps are much smaller. You know, account coordinator to account exec to senior account exec, it's very small jumps. And then you go back to your normal kind of 5K plus jumps for each level. Um, so I can't say it's down to AI alone.
No, but it's interesting though, because it feels like there was a period, probably about 2 or 3 years, where it's just salaries are going up and up and up,
Yeah.
uh, and I think what's been interesting, particularly in the last 12 months, is, like I said, increases in NI, but also increases in minimum wage and national and living wage as well. So
Mm,
as like we're a London living wage employer,
yeah.
which means that our minimum salary is close to 30K now,
Yeah.
and so that means if we're going to continue to be a London living wage employer, we can't employ grads.
Yeah. And this is a really interesting point, right? If a grad is coming in on 27 and whatever it is, 27 and a half or whatnot, then your AEs, are going to be 29,
Mm,
to 30. So AEs will go, well, hold on, I've got a year or a year and a half, and I'm only getting a 1.5 grand more. This doesn't feel right. But that's my consultation with junior talent now, is that, look, at the start, because of the squeeze on business profits and everyone needing to make sure they keep a healthy margin, the jumps are going to be smaller. But once you kind of get to SAE, you're then starting to push 33 to 35. And then after that, you're now in the run of your career.
I don't know if you have the answer to this, but when I look at other industries, PR doesn't feel as well paid as other industries. I don't know, but maybe that's just because I always feel like a poor cousin to everyone else. But if I was a graduate today looking at these salaries and thinking, oh, well, maybe I was just going to management consulting then.
Oh, for sure. And do you know what surprises me? When there's those kind of more management consultancy firms like FGS and FTI and whatnot, and I struggle to work out their leveling, because I see someone with 3 or 4 years, and then they come back with, and I'm like, you're an account manager in my eyes. So I go in with a 40K salary headhunt for a corporate role, and like, sorry, I'm on 50 or 60K. I'm like, whoa. So in some of those management consultancy firms, the salaries are wild. And, there's some that have got 6 years, 7 years experience, and they seem to be on 70 or 80,000. And they're really, yeah. So you're right. I think if money is your number one motivator, PR probably isn't your first choice. Financial services or tech probably is.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like PR's got a bit of a job to do in terms of proving its value a bit more. I think, and I also think those firms you mentioned, they're US headquartered as well. So PR salaries are very much higher in the States. So they may, in the same way that US headquartered law firms based in London will pay more for
Mm.
lawyers in London as well. There may be a bit of that going on. What do you think?
That makes a lot of sense, yeah, because we've recruited a few roles into New York, and I was surprised by the salaries over there, like 120,000 for an account director, and the dollar and pound isn't that far off each other.
I am jumping on a plane to New York after this. I mean, that's bonkers, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
incredible. What are the starting salaries like in the States? Do you know? I mean,
It's been a while since I've done a role. I think an AE, an account exec, is getting 55 to 60,000. I'm pretty sure
wow.
over there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there you can see there's a lot of headroom, and there's more work that the UK APR industry needs
Yeah.
to do, which is something we need to pick up with Sarah Waddington. Uh,
Yes.
where can people go to find out a bit more about your salary guide?
They can head to the website and download. There's in our resources section, and there's a bit of AI topics in there where we've surveyed talent. And there's also a hiring trends report or talent trends report on there, which is a separate report. That's great for seeing movements in talent pools, talent pool sizes, and you can kind of glean your own viewpoint of what's going on in the market from that as well.
I'll definitely be checking that out. That sounds fascinating. Your data about the shrinking AE size is very interesting. Brilliant. Well, thank you for joining us, Dean.
Thanks for having me.
Cool.